Hey Helldivers, I tested all the Force of Law Warbond items against every faction, including Terminids, Automatons, and Illuminate enemies. I'll go over how many magazines or shots it takes to defeat specific enemies, and I'll share my honest thoughts about the Warbond at the very end. So if you enjoyed the content today, please show some love by hitting the like button. I'd really appreciate it. Let's jump right in. What we have first on the list is the G109 Urchin. You can throw it on a charger, it'll stun it, and if you want to stun it even further, throw another Urchin just in case, because you can actually stack it essentially, and you can go behind and dish out some damage if you like. The Hulk, on the other hand, has a slight delay. You'll notice when I throw the Urchin onto it, it ignores the first pulse, but on the second pulse, it's stunned. No matter how many times I tested this, the Hulk always got stunned on the second pulse. Flesh mobs have no delay unless they're rushing forward. In that case, they'll continue swinging their arms until they come to a complete stop. Then they'll be stunned. However, if they're standing still, there won't be any delay. The G109 Urchin won't work on larger enemies like the Bile Titan, as you'll notice it doesn't stop them, which is fine. Impalers can also continue using their tentacles and move around when the Urchin is stuck on them. Additionally, if you try to throw it on a shredder tank or any tank, it won't work either. Automaton factory striders are completely resilient to it and unaffected. The last one I'd like to mention is the harvesters. I was certain this would work, but it's ineffective and doesn't stun them at all. The Urchin, of course, works on all small and medium-sized enemies. Also, don't bother throwing this stun grenade into a hole. It's not going to blow it up, neither will it work on fabricators either. The second item is the AR-32 Pacifier, which can one-shot smaller enemies easily, as you would expect. Hive guards take a bit more work, a total of 6 shots worked, and this bug is no longer moving. We've got chargers next to test. I threw a G109 Urchin on one, which does no damage as expected, fired one magazine into its abdomen, then after running out of ammo, I cut the clip to where I was behind it again. So I unloaded a second magazine, directing all bullets at its back, or abdomen. I repeated this process 2 more times, so a total of 4 magazines was enough to take it down. The question is, are you going to use this specific weapon against a charger? Probably not. You'll likely opt for a support stratagem instead, but for testing purposes, I felt it was necessary to show how many mags it took. Smaller enemies like warriors require 3 shots to eliminate them. I'll showcase a few more clips here to give you a better idea of how well this works on those enemy types. You'll want to fire faster than I'm firing right now, but for video purposes, I'm taking my time to show you how many bullets it actually took. Oh yeah, and 1 shot to a Shrieker will bring it down. With that enemy out of the way, Impalers are next on the chopping block. I unleashed 2 full-sized magazines into the front top portion of the Impaler's head. I suggest you do the same to defeat it. If you're wondering how I got an extra magazine, I was hit by the tentacle and I had to respawn, which is how I got the extra mag. Automatons like troopers or other smaller enemy bot types require only 1 shot to the head or 2 shots to the body to bring them down. It's pretty simple, and I'm sure you could have guessed how many shots you need to inflict. Medium-sized bots such as scout striders or reinforced striders are easy to bring down. If you aim directly at the pelvis and fire 10 shots, you'll defeat them quickly. You can also defeat Hulks quickly too. Go from behind and aim at the heatsink. Unleash a full-sized magazine, and that'll be enough to take it down. Speaking of bringing something down, the Devastators require half a magazine, and that's it towards the body. If you aim at its head, it's obviously going to be 1 hit. Next to the enemy, if you target the red middle section on a Devastator, it takes 6 shots to the red heatsink to bring it down. Illuminates are last on the list. Volus are fun to deal damage to, 1 shot to the cranium or 2 to 3 shots to the midsection. Sometimes 3 if you hit them on the arm. Overseers are simple, aim for the dome to stun them, then finish the job with 3 more shots to the helmet. If you aim at their body and break the armor in the midsection, that'll only take about roughly 10 shots, and you should see it drop. Large enemies like harvesters will quickly deplete your magazines. If the AR-32 Pacifier is all you have when facing this enemy, I recommend breaking the top portion of its head to disable the barrier. then aiming for the top shoulders. Either left or right will work. Unfortunately, I used 3 magazines and a quarter of another, but it can take less if you avoid hitting the tougher parts of the shoulder, as I did about a few times, causing that shield icon to reappear. We also have another large enemy, the flesh mobs. They're strong and have a decent amount of health. I started with 7 magazines, dealt significant damage, and used a total of 4 magazines. I aimed directly at the midsection and used a G109 Urchin grenade, which, as expected, doesn't inflict any damage, it only stuns. The third item is not in the Force of Law Warbond, instead it can be purchased in the Superstore, and that's the P92 Warrant. I'd like to highlight that the maximum distance it can reach with guided rounds is 61 meters, as you can see in this clip. So I'm starting with the Terminids again for testing. Small bugs only need 1 hit with the P92 Warrant, while warriors require 2 hits unless the guided rounds miss their target, which can happen. Chargers are a bit more tedious. In my testing, I found that it took 4 magazines in total, and I was also stunning them during the process. As with the previous case, I don't think you'll use this to defeat a charger, let alone, and you'll most likely opt for a support weapon instead. Shriekers will plummet when struck once. Impalers, like chargers, require switching to unguided rounds because guided rounds are ineffective, so you'll need to aim manually. I started with 1 magazine and ended up using a total of 3 magazines. You'll want to aim for the top section of the head as accurately as possible. Moving along, if you position yourself directly behind a Hulk and aim at the glowing heatsink, 2 magazines will suffice. As with the previous case, switch to unguided rounds to aim freely. Now quickly, I want to highlight that the guided rounds can sometimes miss, as you can see when I first fired 2 to 3 rounds. Anyway, Scout Striders or Reinforced Striders only need 6 shots to the pelvis with unguided rounds. However, if you use guided rounds, you can actually hit the top portion of their domes. Devastators are interesting. When you use the P92 Warrant on them, guided rounds aren't bad, but you'll notice the hits go directly to the sternum, and a total of 11 shots stop the Devastator from pursuing forward. I personally recommend unguided rounds so you can aim directly for the cranium. On a related note about craniums, the P92 Warrant does a great job targeting that specific area. You can see the triangle icon locks onto heads, and when fired, it's practically a one-shot kill. Enemies like flesh mobs are a huge pain. I used 6 magazines in total to take out 1 flesh mob. Are you going to use this to primarily hunt down flesh mobs? No, not at all. Instead, using something like a stalwart would be a better choice, in my opinion. I actually have a full guide on flesh mobs on my channel, where I tested them with various stratagems, so definitely check that video out once you're done with this one. For Overseers, I recommend using unguided rounds and aiming for the head, as it takes fewer shots. When using guided rounds, you'll need a lot more, a total of 1 magazine and a quarter, because they target the chest instead of the head, which kinda sucks, but it happens. I'd like to now bring up something intriguing about the P92 Warrant. Depending on the enemy, it can lock onto them even with the unguided round selected. I'm not sure why, but you'll notice the Harvester gets locked onto, and the bullets go directly to the top portion of the body, and I can't aim for the actual top shoulders. Moving forward, the GL52 De-Escalator is up for testing. I used the G109 Urchin to stun the charger, which does no damage, and a full-sized magazine is all you need to destroy the abdomen on a charger. Besides that, the De-Escalator can be unpredictable at times. Hive guards, for instance, can be 1-tapped or 2-tapped. Likely due to the stun rounds and their area of effect, AoE of course. The same applies to warriors, while smaller bugs are one-shot kills. If you're wondering, can you close up a bug hole with it? No, you cannot, and be careful when firing it at close range. Impalers are fairly easy to stop in their tracks. I use 2 magazines, as you'll notice in the bottom left corner. You'll want to aim for the upper portion of the head as accurately as possible. This will be enough to put an end to that wannabe squid with its tentacles. Continuing on, the GL52 De-Escalator can be unpredictable when used on bots as well. I'll say the same thing as last time, it's likely due to the AoE. I was able to 1-tap a Devastator, and it took a few shots for a Scout Strider. Later in the video, I tried it again, and it took 2 shots for 1 Devastator, and 1 shot for a Scout Strider. Overall, pretty unpredictable. Lastly, for automatons, a Hulk is not too difficult to defeat. He used about 75% of one magazine, and that's all she wrote. Switching gears, the Illuminates are up for testing. I used 2 magazines on one flesh mob, which is enough to stun it and stop it from moving, causing it to collapse right away after the second magazine. Harvesters take about the same amount of time and same amount of magazine. I noticed it was roughly 2 magazines, with the second magazine having about a quarter of its ammo left. For an Overseer, 3 direct hits from the GL52 De-Escalator will make it collapse. The radius or AoE on the De-Escalator is highly effective, allowing you to wipe out anywhere from 6 to 10 volus with a single shot. If you can fire this when they're really compact together, you of course are going to get a lot more. The final weapon we're examining is the Axe Arc 3 Guard Dog K9, another weapon that's unpredictable at times since we're not the ones firing it ourselves and can't directly aim at specific parts. It's hard to predict how many hits you'll need to bring down a particular enemy. Sometimes, depending on the enemy, it can be one hit, or it might take a few more lightning strikes to get the job done. It just depends. I've come to love this guard dog quite a lot, and it's great that you don't need to reload it since it uses an arc thrower. I predicted a week ago that it might be an arc blitzer, but it turns out it's not, and I'm happy about that. Surprisingly, when testing the guard dog K9 on a Hulk, it was able to penetrate its heavy armor. However, it took a lot of shots. I wasn't counting, mainly because it was a ton, and I mean a ton of shots. Now, as I've just said about unpredictability, this right here is one of those weapons, and you can tell that it took 2 shots for one Scout Strider, it took one shot for the other, so it's different at times, and it's just a very interesting guard dog. It's great nonetheless because you can target so many different enemies. It becomes a very useful weapon for crowd control. Booster wise, the stun pod is not that great. I really don't like it. It's just like the fire pod booster where it comes crashing down, affects a certain amount of areas or a certain amount of area, and then that's pretty much all it does. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't like it. But that's not to say that you won't like it, right? You might enjoy the Fire Pod Booster. You might enjoy that one a lot. And if so, you'll like the Stun Pod Booster. The question now, I'm sure you're all wondering, should you purchase it or not? I think you should if you love crowd control weapons. This is exactly what this Warbond is. It allows you to crowd control so much, whether it be the K9, zapping a bunch of enemies, or the Urchin, targeting several enemies in a certain radius. Hell, even the good old Pacifier is just incredibly fun to use. You've got so many different options for crowd control. This right here is what you want if you want to be the team member to help your team survive, whether it be the hordes of Illuminate, Terminates, automatons, the Illuminate. It's great overall. But if you're not a big fan of that, then you might want to avoid this.